Welcome to the AFCEA Leadership Forum 5-question series. I'm Max Kakis with AFCEA International. Our guest today is Ann Altman, General Manager, Federal and Government Industries with IBM. Ann is a graduate of George Mason University here in Fairfax, Virginia. She's been with IBM for 3 decades, starting with the company in 1981 as a systems engineer. Today, she assists clients in federal, state, and local government in the realms of education, healthcare, and the life sciences. Ann, welcome to AFCEA. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Max.
Now, your career is one in which you've risen through the ranks, and you're now overseeing one of the biggest IT portfolios in the industry. Based on all of that experience, what would you say are the characteristics in an individual that mark that person as a potential leader?
Well, when I think about leadership and the characteristics I look for, I first look for people who listen, who really listen, and who don't listen as a means of listening for what they want to hear, but they listen for what the individual wants to share. So number one, listening.
Right.
The other thing I look for is how people show up. You know, how do they show up? Do they come prepared? Are they engaged? Do they have a point of view? And then lastly, I would say it's about being authentic. And that's so very important because who you are should be who you are, both in a private life and public life.
Right. Now, is confidence a part of how you show up? In other words, a person who is self-aware and yet at the same time is poised and able to present themselves?
Confidence, I think, comes from being self-aware. And so absolutely, it's a characteristic that you would expect to find in a leader.
Right. Well, on that note, what's the most important skill for a leader then?
You know, I have to go back, Max, to the word authentic because I think that's so important. If you're an authentic leader, then people tend to trust you. They understand this is who you are, it's how you show up, there's a level of consistency. So I would say authenticity is the number one for me. Right.
Authenticity in terms of how they deal with people, they interact with people, in terms of outcomes, because you have to be able to know when your leadership style is working.
I agree with you. I think that's absolutely right.
And when do you know that your leadership style is working? What are your personal benchmarks for when something's working in terms of when you're trying to lead a group of people to a particular outcome?
Well, perhaps I could share a story that would emphasize how I knew that we were being successful. Maybe a year or so ago, I had the opportunity to attend an awards ceremony at the Building Museum, which was a national quality award for healthcare.
Right.
And I realized that evening that it wasn't about the award itself, it wasn't about the tribute to IBM. It was in recognition of the impact that we were having in healthcare around the world. And I had this moment of realization. You've been to the Building Museum?
Certainly.
So everything was set up, the tables were exquisite, the podium was ready, and I walked upstairs with a colleague and just took a moment, a quiet moment, to look down and say, this is what it's all about. It's not about my recognition. It's not about IBM's recognition. It's that the world acknowledges the contributions which comes from our ability to lead.
Interesting. And when you get that kind of recognition, is that in the realm of being life-affirming? Is that something that kind of adds positive reinforcement to how you look at your leadership style?
Well, I suppose I would say yes. It's most affirming to me to see that others recognize, and it is others who award that recognition for leadership. It isn't something that you can give to yourself.
Certainly. Now, On the other hand, it is said that a good leader also learns from things that don't exactly work well. What would you say you've learned from your biggest failure, or like a particular shortcoming in terms of when you were managing a project or you were trying to achieve a certain goal?
You know, of course, everyone has many failures and many areas that we'd like to improve, or we wish we could rewind the clock of time. But I think oftentimes what disappoints me most in my own leadership is that I get caught up in the moment. I get caught up in what we are doing and lose sight of my responsibility to drive us to the future. And so I think the importance is that wise leaders create context for their people to live into. And oftentimes, in the heat of the moment, the heat of a quarter, whatever the project may be, it's easy to lose sight of that vision and where you are taking your team or organization. And so that's something that I have to work on.
And good leaders also inspire people and also gain inspiration from others. Who do you consider a personal hero?
Personal hero. Well, I have many heroes, like we all do.
Sure.
And maybe I could reflect back on that word authentic, because often the people that I most admire are those who I believe are authentic leaders. And I would start first with my father, because I hope that I make him proud in how I emulate who he is. But there are so many phenomenal leaders, and in history I might call out someone like Harriet Tubman, who, against all odds and at great personal danger and harm, she was the great abolitionist of that time. And to me, it touches on being who you are and living your word and having the courage and conviction of seeing a different future.
Interesting. Well, Ann, on that note, I want to thank you for sharing your insights and perspectives on leadership with us today.
Thank you.
We appreciate your support, and we want to wish you best of luck on your future endeavors.
Thank you.
I'm Max Kakis. You've been watching the AFCEA Leadership Forum 5 Question Series.